Hi guys, and welcome to this week's video. As you can see, we are currently out in the lorry. We are headed to our first lesson in over 2 months, so that's really exciting. The weather's a bit miserable here, as it always is, although my last video I think we did have some sun. On our way out, we're actually just coming off our lane and onto the main road, which is closed further along. So on the way home, we are going to have to contend with some road closed signs, which are very handily in our lane as we come off the slip road. So on our way home, I'm going to have to be really cautious and take that with a really wide berth and not just cut the corner. So we're hoping the weather is going to improve. We're headed to Exmouth, so hopefully it will be better up there. But we will see. So we'll see you when we get there. So we've arrived, the boys are quite happy. They travelled really well, which I'm pleased with, because Top Cat got himself very wound up before we put him on the lorry, but once he was on with his friend, he did settle down. But as you can see, he was very impatient and he was making thoughts on the matter that it was all taking too long, very well known. But now he's quite happily eating, bless him. And Bo is tucking into his food as well. He's currently having a massage with his equilibrium pad, and then I will put his tack on and we'll wander up and we'll start our lesson. We'll see you up there.
Yeah.
Lesson. The weather was really miserable, hence we're already back on the roads. I'm soaking wet, britches are soaking wet, and obviously Bo's very wet as well. So we sort of quickly got loaded up, get on home, and then we can get cleaned up, warmed up. Looking forward to going in and having a cup of coffee. But the lesson was well worth it. It's fantastic. It's so nice to be out and about again, and he was a very good boy. The sun is shining when we got back, and you can actually even see some blue sky, which I wish it had been like that for my lesson. Excuse the mess, we've kind of dumped everything when we came in, and now I just need to sort it out. So Top Cat's busily scrounging around. He was a good boy in the end, Top Cat, but before we left he was he was quite feisty, shall we say, bless him. And Bo's just having a massage. And he's quite happy back eating. So Bo was extremely good in his lesson. Obviously he hasn't been anywhere for a little while, so you're never quite sure what I'm going to get on. I did sort of try to keep control of my nerves, but because the weather was so wet, it was a case of quickly getting him off the lorry and get on, and I didn't really have a time to sort of think about the various scenarios in which things could go wrong, which is unfortunately one of my very bad habits. And he really did sort of behave himself. I didn't put his acoustic ears on, and I was sort of thinking about it all the way up to lesson, do I use them or not? But part of the reason for not using them all the time is so that he does get used to a little bit of noise, rather than blocking everything out all the time. Just try and build his confidence up, and then obviously we can use them for situations like his music, and hopefully he won't be quite so reactive. Whether that will work, I don't know, but he was a good boy without them, so that's sort of given me a bit more confidence that he doesn't need them all the time. So I'm not going to sort of use them as a bit of a crutch, which is what I think we have been doing. Obviously, fitness is our biggest thing that sort of showed up in this lesson, particularly mine. I struggled a lot more than he did, so definitely got to keep sort of pushing forward that. But we haven't got a lesson now till the end of May, so I'm hoping by then I can make drastic improvements towards my fitness. We only sort of did walk and trot work, but we're working a lot on making sure that he's supple both ways, got the right amount of bend, particularly in our movements. Like we did a lot of shoulder in, we did some travers. I do struggle a little bit with my coordination and balance in certain movements, and particularly sometimes having a lesson. When I'm doing it perhaps at home by myself, I can sort of think, oh, I'm going to do that here, and I can sort of mentally prepare and organise myself how I need to. Whereas when I'm in a lesson, I think I'm sometimes a little bit too slow to process what I've been asked. It is something I really do sort of struggle with, particularly the half pass, making sure that I've got my body weight in the right place, and that obviously my legs are in the right place, but it's something that I am very aware of, and I don't know, sometimes because I'm so aware of it, I'm overthinking the situation, and I think particularly with perhaps the half pass, I've ended up trying for too much angle, which then he struggles with, and the whole thing sort of falls apart. And it's remembering to ride the movement right to the end, rather than sort of just letting it sort of dwindle off, which is a bit of a thing that we can do. So although we didn't do any canter work, actually I was quite relieved in some ways. I think I might have died if we'd done a lot of work in canter as well. But it was nice to sort of work a lot on like the fundamentals and making sure everything is right. And we did a little bit of work towards our sort of walk pirouettes, although we didn't really do very many sort of half pirouettes, which we would normally do in a test. We were doing sort of what do you call them, quarter, I think, on a sort of triangle, and I was really pleased with him for no other reason. If we were getting it slightly wrong, I felt like I could correct him. Whereas sometimes he isn't always open to a discussion on things. It's his way or no way. Used to be a little bit with the walk pirouettes, but we're certainly going in the right direction. They've by no means got them there yet, but I'm pleased with them. But I dread them in the test, and again, I think it's another one of those that sort of gets in your head, oh, I've got to do that, and it just, I momentarily probably freeze up, which isn't ideal in the middle of the test, particularly when you're working at medium with everything coming at you quite quickly, whereas in sort of prelim and novice, it was very little to sort of have to sort of remember to do, other than making sure obviously the rhythm was right, and that they were bending, your circles the right size. Mind you, that's enough for me to think about. Having to do all the sort of lateral work, and particularly in a test like medium 75, where each movement comes up quite quick, although the previous movement always helps sort of set you up in some ways, it is quite a lot to try and sort of remember to do, on top of remembering the test as well. I don't have my test called. I would probably find that more confusing, because I then have to process what I'm being asked to do, which is something that I am not very quick at, is processing instructions. So I was really, really pleased. I'm looking forward to the next one. I don't know if Bo is. I think as long as he's got his friend there and plenty of hay, he's definitely much easier and much more chilled. He travelled really well, and he was a good boy once he was there. it was handy having the Equilibrium massage pads because it's so much easier to transport than this great big rug to put on prior to work, so I could warm him up a little bit. And I think particularly like a day like today where the rain was actually felt really cold, I think that was really beneficial that he'd had his sort of muscles warmed up. So that's ideal. So it was a good day. So I'm now going to take his massage rug off, which is just finished. I just heard it beep, and leave him in peace and quiet because I think that's what he would like. He's been very patient. Normally he would have told me to leave him alone by now, but he's been quite happy. So that's it, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.